Watchmen are back and bigger and badder than ever. I mean, some of them are dead and most of them are old. It's all very confusing in that sequel series, isn't it?
But bigger and badder than ever. It's unequivocal.
And you know what else is big and bad? Leaving a like.
Oh, I thought you were going to say what? Dr. Manhattan's dong. That's big and bad.
Seems about average.
Yeah, I was going to say it's regular. Look, we're building some hype is what we're doing here.
Exactly. Anyways, I thought this Watchmen sequel isn't the only Watchmen supplementary material that we've got over the years.
But is it the best?
Well, it's not over yet.
No, that's true, yeah.
But probably. Why don't we go through all the ones that there have been as of so far that spun off the 1986 seminal comic by Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons. Mm-hmm. Just quickly, what are your thoughts on the original comic? I mean, it's great, obviously.
I mean, it's great, and a lot of people will recommend it. Like, if somebody's not into comics, what comic book would you recommend? And people say, Watchmen, it's a masterpiece. And it is a masterpiece, but it is not for your casual reader, I don't think.
It shouldn't be the first thing you pick up.
No, it's for people who I think love superhero comics.
Yes.
And want a different take on that. And
exactly.
That certainly delivers. And it was realistically, it was one of the first stories to deliver that.
So if you do want to get into it, I would say Snake Tales.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Garfield.
Then read every superhero comic.
Yes. Tintin.
Yes, of course.
Watchmen. So there is actually a prequel comic to Watchmen. It's called Before Watchmen.
Yeah, and that's 8 limited series, I think, focusing on different characters. So there was a Minutemen one, there was an Ozymandias one, Silk Spectre, Rorschach, Moloch, I think, got a couple of issues.
Yeah, he got one, yeah.
Bunch of stuff that happened prior to the events of the main Watchmen series. And this came in 2012. But prior to this point, no one hath dared to make anything related to Watchmen.
No, it was kind of... there was the movie adaptation. Mm-hmm. But Alan Moore actually said in 1985, before Watchmen came out, that if Watchmen did well and was well received, that there's a possibility that he would create a 12-issue prequel series that was called The Minutemen, and it was set in the 1940s. But in 2010, when he'd been thoroughly burned by DC and comics, and he's up to all sorts of witchcraft in his cave or whatever he's doing, he told Wired that DC actually offered him the rights to Watchmen back if he agreed to a prequel and sequel series. But he said, if that had been 10 years ago, when I asked them for that, then yeah, it might have worked. But these days, I don't want Watchmen back. Certainly, I don't want it back under those kinds of terms.
There you go, man of principle.
So as a result of that, we got like J. Michael Straczynski, Darwin Cook, a bunch of other really talented...
Len Wein, the creator of Wolverine, did the Ozymandias series.
Yeah. Now, I've read very little of this. Mm-hmm. Where do you stand on
I think there's a lot of good concepts in it, but there's also some weird retconning in it.
Yeah.
Which I think, had we gotten Alan Moore to write a real prequel to these, there wouldn't have been so many changes.
Yes.
I think the most famous one for me is that in the original Watchmen, it is implied that the comedian had something to do with the death of JFK.
Yes.
And in the movie, I think it's very explicitly, you see him packing a rifle away on the grassy knoll as after JFK has been killed. But in these prequel comics, the comedian is somewhere else, and his friend JFK is killed, and he's like, whoa, I did not see this coming.
Not cool, man.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so would you say this is worth a read, though?
I think so. And I think, changes that have been made notwithstanding, I think there are some, there's some A-list talent producing these, and they're a real interesting, I was going to say time capsule, but it's not a time capsule. Well, although I guess it is a time capsule, because it's 2012.
Everything's eventually a time capsule.
That's very true. Yeah.
Would you give it a Watchmen or don't Watchmen? That's our...
Oh, good,
that's our
good.
ranking.
I'd give it a Watchmen.
Okay, interesting, yeah. So... in 2009, though, Zack Snyder, he did a movie adaptation, which is fairly faithful for the most part, except they took out the squid at the end.
Yes.
We've done a separate video on that on Caravan of Garbage, where we talk about it in great depth and how it was made and the process and the rights and former versions of it.
Watchmen the Ride?
Watchmen the Ride,
oh
yeah.
my goodness.
So I don't really want to get into it too much here, but in summary, it's a fair shot at this often considered unfilmable thing.
Absolutely.
But it does lack something that the comic has, because they're just different mediums.
They really are, yeah. We say watch that? What did we say in the last one? I can't remember.
I would say so, yeah, but I think it's something you should probably watch after the comic. I think if you're interested in comics in general.
Okay, so...
so do Watchmen. But like I said, we've got a whole other video on that I'll link at the end. But what's interesting about that movie is there was actually a prequel video game called Watchmen: The End Is Nigh.
Yes.
It was like a short kind of 2-act
And you
structure.
played as Nite Owl and Silk Spectre, I think?
It was Nite Owl or Rorschach.
Rorschach, okay.
Yeah, and it was set before the Keene Act in 1977.
Oh, the one that made superheroing illegal.
Exactly. Okay. And the idea is...
so you could superhero the heck out of that town.
You know it. The thing about this is, if you like the Arkham combat, it's just that.
But not as good.
But not as good. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's terrible. It kind of got kicked at the time. Variety gave it an unfavorable review and called it a distressingly shallow video game in which there's nothing for players to do but beat the living crap out of everyone they see. So if that appeals to you...
And why wouldn't it?
And why wouldn't it?
For fans of the comic book especially, there's more to these characters than punching. For most of these characters, Nite Owl especially, that's his least favourite activity, really.
Yes, it is,
and to put him in a video game where it's just him punching wave after wave of enemies.
His most favourite activity is impotence.
It's absolutely right.
The game, though, it's interesting because it ends with the partnership of Nite Owl and Rorschach being severed. And then Nite Owl teaming up with a comedian in that scene with the riot. Do you remember when he's like, why are we beating up all these people for? I just want to be impotent.
Right.
I would say, look, you definitely don't need to revisit this at all.
Maybe watch a Let's Play.
Maybe watch a Let's Play.
Maybe watch whatever clip is inserted in as we've been talking about.
Exactly, yeah.
Done. You've nailed it there.
Here's something interesting, though. A motion comic was actually created by Cruel and Unusual Films in 12, 25 to 30-minute segments. I mean, it's as faithful an adaptation, I guess, you can do. It's one person doing the voice of all the characters.
Including all the ladies.
That's right. And there's some, obviously, minor bits of animation through and through. You can find it all on YouTube. One of those things where, yeah, look, if you can't read or you don't want to read, then this is probably for you. But it's not the most ideal way to consume The Watchmen, I would say. Have you seen it?
I have seen it, yeah.
Yeah.
It was on TV once. I didn't...
Really?
It was just on TV one time. Maybe in like a digital channel or something like that.
Yeah, okay, right, yeah. Would you rank it over the movie?
I'd rank it over every single other form of Watchmen media, including the comic. Including being handed the original comic book art from Dave Gibbons himself. I'll be like, goodness. No, thank you. I've got the motion comic to watch.
I taped it when it was on TV.
That's right.
Anyway, I would say don't Watchmen.
Yeah, don't Watchmen.
Yeah, but it's exactly what you think it is.
It's intriguing.
Yeah.
Is what it is.
This brings us closer to the modern day, though. 12 issues of the sequel Doomsday Clock. At the time that this goes out, there's one issue left, and it's written by Jeff Johns, famous DC man, and it brings together all the original Watchmen characters as well as the DC characters and attempts to explain the difference between the New 52 and the DC Rebirth and the original DC continuity and how this all may have been a result of Dr. Manhattan potentially.
I mean, not bad writing or editorial decisions, but certainly a fictional character.
That's right. Look, you've said this before, but this would have been served better as a straight up sequel as opposed to and Superman's in it and Batman's in it and the Flash is in it and so on and so forth.
I never thought I would say that. You know, Watchmen's a great standalone comic book. We don't need to know what happens in the future.
Yes.
Having read the first few issues of this initially, I went, oh, you know what? Jeff Johns, big fan of comic books, you know, a veteran comic book writer, has kind of nailed the characterization here. And then all of a sudden it takes a turn and those characters tumble into the DC universe. And I thought to myself, I don't like this anymore.
I definitely don't hate it. And also there's one issue left. There's also a lot of explanation to be done in that last issue.
Yeah, right.
Because there's a lot of stuff that's kind of like, what is going on here?
At the same time, it doesn't really matter.
No, absolutely.
You know,
doesn't,
I mean, the DC universe they tumble into isn't the official real DC universe. It's a different DC universe.
Yeah.
So there'll be if you don't like this one, there'll be another one probably in a few
There'll be
years.
another
So,
one.
yeah.
What I also didn't like about this necessarily, again, I don't think it's terrible, and again, it hasn't finished. They introduce characters like Mime and Marionette. They get a lot of play in the early issues, and then it's just kind of dropped for Superman and
again,
else.
which to me, they felt like very authentically
Me too.
Watchmen-style characters, despite the fact that one of them has superpowers of some degree.
Yes.
Which have yet to be adequately explained.
We'll find out,
We'll
maybe.
find out in the final
Superpowers
issue.
or invisible guns.
He's got one of those two things.
We just
yes.
don't know.
We don't know.
Yeah. And that brings us to the...
Maybe the squid did it.
Maybe the squid did it.
Yeah, right?
But I would still say do Watchmen.
Yeah, do Watchmen, yeah.
Because it's intriguing, and I think maybe if you read it in one sitting, maybe it plays a lot better.
Okay.
But I don't know, because we've yet to be able to do that. And that brings us to the televisual sequel, Damon Lindelof's Watchmen. It's 4 episodes in by the time this goes out. This, so far, and it is early days, is my favorite spin-off adaptation, sequel, prequel, whatever you want to call it, of this entire thing.
Sequel. I mean, it's definitely not a prequel.
No, I just mean, if you encampass everything,
it's not a prequel.
There's prequel elements.
Yeah, there's
in
a flashback.
But I'm just saying of all the supplementary materials.
I know, I'm just razzing you.
Why are you razzing me, Mason? This is YouTube. We're all friendly here.
I'm a real comedian, like the character of the comedian.
Yeah. I like the slow introduction of the original characters, finding out how the world has kind of been shaped. It is strictly a sequel to the comic. Like, there's nods to the movies and things like that.
But there is definitely some big squid energy to this
so much
TV
big
series.
squid energy.
What I also like about this is that the costumes aren't very good.
Yes.
Which I feel like is a deliberate nod to the originals, insofar as the Watchmen comic book isn't about superheroes so much as it is regular people who just decided to put on masks and fight crime. And that feels way more accurate in this, like as opposed to the movie or, you know, any modern day Justice League style movie where everybody's wearing kind of super cool leather and yeah, exactly, and super high tech weapons and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's just people who've decided to put on a tracksuit and a ski mask.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly,
and they're
yeah.
like good enough.
Anyway, early days, we'll see how that goes, because often people return to a video years later and go, well, actually, that show wasn't very good and you're wrong. So, look, we're sorry if it didn't turn out to be good, but at the moment, it's quite
pretty
good.
solid, yeah.
Of course, there is one other upcoming Watchmen project. This was announced in April of 2017. Warner Brothers announced they are developing an R-rated animated film based on the comic book that I assume is never coming.
It's been some years, hasn't it?
It's been some years, and we haven't really heard anything about it. And now with the sequel, and now with Doomsday Clock and everything else going on, I just don't.
Yeah, I think maybe the live action series has taken precedence here over that, over the serial.
Yes,
Watchmen.
Watchmenos.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah. Anyways, I'd be curious though. What do people think is their favorite supplementary material to the Watchmen comic? You can't say the original comic, all right? You can't say it. You can say it.
You can say it, but I mean, everybody's going to say it.
It's
so maybe
lazy.
say a different thing.
Yeah.
I mean, what a cool guy would do is like this video and subscribe and say a different thing.
Something unexpected.
Exactly. And what is an element of the Watchmen franchise you wish would be turned into a spin-off? Would you like some Watchmenos? Would you like a lunchbox? Would you like Funko Pops? Are there already Funko Pops?
These are all good and valid questions.
Do you want a Dr. Manhattan Funko Pop? What's his dong going to look like?
Like squished up.
Squished up, yep.
Anyways, we do videos here every Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday. We also have a podcast called The Weekly Planet where we talk movies and comics and TV shows. I think every week we really kind of go back and touch on what the Watchmen have been up to, in addition to another topic, you know, the movie and TV show and comic book news of the week, all stuff like that, isn't it? Anyways, guys, thanks for watching.
Grab that gem, you guys. We'll see you next week.
Goodbye.